Painting enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. And in this episode it's going to be a bit of a how not to. So like I say, I don't do how-to videos, so I've spent approximately 2.5 days, maybe a little bit longer, machine polishing Sprout every single panel. I'll go through the process I used in a moment. Like I say, this is not going to be a how-to because I think I've probably done it wrong, and there's probably easier ways of doing it, and I am absolutely by no means an expert on this. I'm a complete amateur, but I thought I'd just show you some of the results. I'm really pleased. The paintwork was good anyway. It's kind of elevated to the next level now. I think it's show standard. There is no orange peel on any of the major panels now. They are all smooth as a baby's bum. But it has been extremely hard work, and like I say, I didn't get it right, I did get it wrong. I've probably done it the hard way, but just the reflections on the panels is just phenomenal. So I've been machine polished every single panel. In fact, I've done more than machine polish it. It's been wet flatted. I've got it out today because the sun's not so bright today. Hopefully you can see. When the sun's really bright, I couldn't actually work on it. It was too bright in the garage. Still lots to do, but like I say, reflections are just out of this world. But it has been hard work. A little bit of orange peel up here. I haven't done these bits. And it really is as good as it looks. I'm not exaggerating, and I hope it stays like it. I hope it doesn't sink back or something like that, but I am super pleased with it. Like I say, Mark done a fantastic job anyway. Again, it really is that thing that you have to put the hard work in. So the paint process, there was 70 hours of prep, and I've probably just done another 25 hours after painting. So let me take you aside and I'll show you what I used. Right viewers, it looks fantastic, doesn't it? So I thought I'd go over a few of the bits I've used. You might find it useful, but I'm certainly not going to do a how-to video because, as I've said before, someone always knows how to do it better, and I'm not taking the mickey. I can guarantee someone knows how to do it better in this case. There are lots of professional valeters out there. I watch their videos on YouTube. They're far more experienced than I am and can probably do a better job in half the amount of time. But I thought, as an amateur, I'd just show you what I've used. I have machine polished before, but only old paintwork on old cars, just trying to valet them, bring them up nice. And I've just used a rotary polisher, not a DA. I think, I don't know the exact difference, but certainly with a rotary polisher, it's far easier to burn through the paintwork. it's a lot easier to leave swirls and holograms in the paint, whereas a DA almost eliminates that. Well, certainly what I've found using the products and the bits I've got here, I haven't got any swirls in the car, and there's no holograms or anything like that. And I think some of that's to do with using the DA sander. Other things is that using decent products, and some of this stuff, professional valeter will probably look at it and go, that's not quality stuff. Yeah, so let me talk through it. So when I got the car back from Mark, it looks absolutely fantastic. Very slightly orange peely in places. Some bits were worse than others. Certainly the roof did need something doing with it, and the scuttle. Rest of the car, to be honest, I could have put all the trim back on. It would have looked absolutely fine, and still was a great paint job. What actually happened was I'd done a bit of the scuttle. I wet flatted it. I got all the orange peel out on the scuttle, and then all of a sudden the scuttle looked better than the top of the wings. So then I've done the top of the wings, and they look better than the bonnet. And then you look at the wings against the A panel, and you just then end up going around the whole car. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. You can't have one bit looking perfect and the rest. So I had to get the car all up to the same sort of standard. And like I say, you know, I'm not taking anything away from Mark's paint job. It was absolutely fantastic, a really, really great paint job. But I've probably taken it to that level now where it was a good paint job, and now it is just an amazing finish. It is what I would call show car finish. So there is almost no orange peel in the car. In fact, certainly on any of the big panels, there's no orange peel. You might find some little bits around the top of the windscreen, but you just can't get a machine polisher in there to do that, and it's just not practical, to be honest. So I certainly got this wrong to begin with, and I learnt as I went through this. I got better at doing it towards the end. Time wise, I've spent 2.5 days on it, so probably something like 24 hours. Like I say, that's on top of the 70 hours prep that went into the paintwork and blah blah blah. So the first thing I'd done, and this is where I went wrong, so I bought this kit off eBay, Duran Tools. It's a DA sander, come as a kit with various different mop heads of different sizes, different interface pads, and it said it come with compound, but it didn't. It come with I've never know how to pronounce this. I always used to call it Farecla, but I've watched lots of videos recently where they call it Farecla. What's right? Farecla. The professionals call it Farecla. I don't know whether it's a French name, that. But so I got that with the kit. It was the wrong stuff. This is just wax. You can't compound the car with that. So I bought the compound G3, and they do two different types. They do G3 regular and they do G3 premium. The premium has a cut and a finish built in, so it's a cut and a polish together. So that saves a bit of time because you're doing 2 stages at one go. I had a look on the back of it and it said blah blah blah. I read the instructions, and it says, it doesn't actually say on the back. I looked online, but it said you could use this with after you'd 1500 wet flatted the car. So I bought a load of 1500 paper, and the first run I'd done on the car was 1500 the whole car with wet and dry paper. So that's taking it wet, dunking in a bucket, rubbing it down, and as soon as you start to rub it, you can see imperfections in the paintwork. Then it takes out all the grit and dirt, and you can see the orange peel in it. You keep rubbing until you get a matte finish across the panel, and then I was compounding it with this G3. As I say, online they say use 1500, but what I found, or what I learned researching it afterwards, that not all 1500 grit wet and dries are the same. So if you buy decent quality 1500 3M wet and dry paper, it will be finer than this cheap stuff I bought from Halfords. So I've done the whole car. It looks pretty good, but you could still see swirls in the paint, which I wasn't that happy with. So first stage was 1500, wet flat the car till you get satin finish, and then I went over it with G3 compound, and I used it on hard pads. So these are 6-inch hard pads, and I used the 3-inch hard pads for or hard cut for the smaller areas. but like I say, looking at it afterwards, I still had a bit of swirling in the paintwork, and I needed to go over it again. So I've done a bit more research. Second run, and I guess second run, final run really. I've done it with 2,500 wet and dry, then 3,000 wet and dry, and then 7,000. The 7,000 stage you possibly don't need to do because it is really fine 7,000, but it saves a bit of buffing time. It's a little bit more time wet flatting, but the cut then, the G3 compound cuts through it really quickly. So it's at 1,500, 2,005, 3,000 and 7,000 wet and dry. It then had, so in total it would have had 4 passes with G3. So four applications, compound it on, wipe it off, compound it on, wipe it off. So 4 applications of G3. I went through a whole, that's a 500 gram bottle, used a whole bottle, and I've probably used almost half, maybe I've used a third of that. So these bottles are about 20 quid each. So again, it all adds up. So I've done that, and then I've done, next up was 4 passes with G10 finishing compound. Now this is really fine, and it's meant to be for dark coloured cars, metallics and blacks and things like that. But I found on Sprout, it just took the finish to another level. Even with a G3, you could still see with a fluorescent light, microscopic scratches in the paint. The G10 just brings it up like a mirror. It is really good. But obviously you've got to do all that hard work first. So 4 passes of Farecla G10, and I used them on medium pads. These pads have almost had it now. They've started falling to bits. And then 3-inch medium pads as well. And then the final stage, which again was machine polished on. I think you can do it by hand, but you just seem to get a bit of a better finish when you machine polish, was G3 protection wax. So that was on the soft pads, 6-inch and 3-inch, and some of this stuff I had to do the hard to get areas I've done with a small handheld waffle pad, which works all right actually. I thought it'd be a bit naff. Each time before you use a compound, I tried it different ways, spraying water on the car, spraying it on the pad. Spraying it on the car just seemed to make a mess. You spray the panel, you put the stuff on, it just flings it everywhere. And you have to be quite sparing with the water as well. Literally every application it was like 1, 2, maybe 3, work it in a bit, put your compound on, and then start to work it. And that worked really well. So the things I learned from this, I started out blocking the car. The first door I'd done, I immediately stopped blocking the car because the block is great, but you really have to make sure your wet and dry paper is spotlessly clean each time, because if you get any grit or dirt either between the block and the wet and dry, or on the face of the wet and dry itself, when you start blocking it, you just put in big scratches in the car. I preferred to do the whole lot by hand in the end. It was just the feel. Putting on too much water, like I say, just avoid that because it just makes a right mess. And believe it or not, putting on too much product, so especially the G3, if you put that on, it just clogs up the pads really quickly. It's better to use not enough than too much. And when I say not enough, it's less than you think you'd have to use. So you put some on, you think that's not enough, that's fine. If you think that's not enough, that's fine. It's literally like, you know, for a panel the size of a door, it's probably sort of 1 bead round, and that's enough. Any more than that, you start clogging the pads up, and it actually becomes really hard work when you start clogging the pads up. You're better off just wiping it off and starting again. Yeah, so it went really well. Like I say, it was really hard work. Don't rush it. It is quite scary to do because you're wet flat in new paintwork, and if you go too far, you'll go through to the paint. You go through the paint, and then you've wrecked the paint job then. So I knew there was lots of lacquer on this car. Mark done exactly the same with Kit when he sprayed Kit. Was lay it on quite thick, and it gives you plenty to play with then. It's a bit of contingency planning really, because if you do get any dirt in the paint, providing there's enough paint there, you can flat it off and get it out without a problem. If it's really thin, you've got no hope. And the only other thing I'd say, this tool, it's been pretty good. Done the whole car with it. It come in the kit with the pads, with the G3 wax. I think that's all it come with. It's 115 quid. Taking in mind a bottle of that's like 20 quid. These pads, when you look at them, they're like 7-8 quid each, so it does add up. And I've got some other spares as well. This actual tool itself, first thing, massive letdown. The cable needs to be twice as long as that. You see a lot of that, professional valeters do it. They'll put the cable over their back like that, and they'll polish away. And the reason you do that is because when you start dangling it on the paintwork, especially where you've just polished it, it will mark it really, really easily. So cable ain't long enough for one. Other thing I found with the 3-inch pads, this works great, absolutely fantastic. It's got variable speed on there. It would be nice if the variable speed was up here, because what you do is you start out slowly and then you want to adjust it up a little bit as you go. It's really difficult to get to that speed control, but at the end of the day, it's cheap. And like I say, with the 3-inch pads, it works really well. It's got enough speed, it's got enough torque, it keeps the pad rotating and orbiting at the same time, dual action, whatever that dual action is, it rotates and vibrates. But when you put the 6-inch pads on there, with the G3, especially if you put a bit too much G3 on there and on these hard pads, it stops rotating. You have to come off the pressure a little bit to try and get it rotating to get the compound working. So it's probably just not got enough torque really for 6-inch pads. It'll do. It's done the whole car. To be fair, it's done a really good job as well. And that's that. So like I say, this is not a how-to, this is just my experience with stuff. If I'd done it again, I definitely wouldn't bother with 1500, probably wouldn't bother with 2500. It depends how bad the paint is to begin with. Quite easy, I found towards the end on some of the panels around the back, I was just doing 3000 and 7000. 7000 is kind of optional, as I say, it just cuts down the amount of time you're compounding for. So yeah, biggest mistake I did was starting with 1500 and using the block to flat the car, and then it's all about technique. And unfortunately, it's one of those things, until you've done it, till you've gone around the whole car and done it yourself, next time I do it, I'll be much better at it, much quicker. I would be really cautious about doing someone else's car though, because like I say, thankfully, thank God, I've gone around the whole car and not gone through the paint anywhere. There was a couple of times when I was just flattening it and I was thinking, oh my God, is that green? Is that coming off green? Because if it is, I've gone through the lacquer. But I'm pretty confident I didn't go through the paint anywhere on the car. So yeah, that's kind of my experience with wet flattening the car. Kind of, it's not detailing, it's it's just bringing the paint up to it brings it up to the next level really. It looks really fantastic. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I've realised it's probably a bit boring looking at a camera I've waffled on for 14 minutes now, which is quite impressive. Have a great day, and we'll be back with Sprouts soon, and we're nearly done now. It really does feel like there's not much more to do, and there isn't. So cheers for tuning in. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.